Super, thanks very much. Absolute pleasure to be here. Great to see so many people here, particularly later on in the afternoon when we tend to all shy away. I'm going to also, a bit like Greg, I'm going to actually talk non-technical at all. I'm going to talk absolutely to do with business and business transformation and how some of the frameworks like Sassy, what it means, and how you can actually quickly deploy that and embrace that and move that forward to actually have a much more successful and digitally engaged presentation. And you know, one thing I didn't get was I didn't get a clicker when I came up stage. So I can't move anything back and forward. There we go. Thanks very much. There we go. Otherwise, you were just going to see me and get the holding presentation. So, as John said, I'm a C-suite advisor for Checkpoint. So I'm an evangelist. I think I've got one of the best jobs in the world. I don't sell and I don't talk about product. I just talk about cybersecurity, roadmaps, risks, and how we want to engage it. So I've got a really short agenda here I'm going to take you through, talking about the digital journey. Some of that's going to be my journey as well as to how I'm here and why I'm at Checkpoint. Then talking about hyper-distributed data applications, workloads, what they mean. Touch on three of the concepts that I think are important when you're looking at Sassy and moving forward with Sassy. So that's secure remote access, internet access, and then that branch office connectivity, SD-WAN type thing. And then I'll just summarise, and likewise, I'm hoping to be bang on time as well. So I've deliberately put some of the older logos on this that I could find when I went on Google. But when I started thinking about where am I going to start with this presentation, a lot of where we are at the moment now is within this cloud space, and in particular within the SaaS. So the first time I touched any SaaS applications was actually back in with Salesforce. And when Salesforce actually were on the scene, so that was back in the early 1990s, and they were probably one of the first, I think, full SaaS-based applications started in the garage like a lot of these were. I've put some old logos on there as well. Checkpoint's on there. The founder of Checkpoint, Gil, he actually created the first ever stateful inspection firewall, and Gil's still sitting there as the chairman and president of Checkpoint at the moment. Moving along this line, we get to things like Amazon Web Services that came along. They disrupted the marketplace in 2006. Obviously, that's when they launched their cloud computing. Right underneath that, there's a little box there, which is a data center I built up in Dundee in Scotland. That was a tier 3 data center in 2006. Now, we thought that was all the leading cutting edge at the time. We thought everybody was going to come and build services, and then 3 months later, AWS launched their cloud computing. So it's amazing how things actually change. We then embraced that hybrid way of working, so it was physical as well as virtual. Then moving along from there as well, you get into Microsoft Azure in 2010. And obviously, this is where we are. We're all into cloud computing at the moment. So where's the data at the moment? Where's the workloads? What are we doing? Where's the users? So at the moment, applications are absolutely everywhere. We've got applications in our data centers and our data cabinets. We've got applications that sit on our mobile phones. We've got applications that sit within the cloud. We've got SaaS, we've got PaaS, IaaS. We could keep going with all these acronyms, which I won't do. The users are absolutely remote. Now, that didn't happen because of COVID. COVID just accelerated the users wanting to work that way. Prior to actually being at Checkpoint, I've only been Checkpoint 6 weeks. I was a CIO for NHS up in Scotland for 4 years. And I had a long commute from Dundee up to Edinburgh every day. It was 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So I actually worked in that hybrid way. I said when I was coming in, I wasn't going to travel in every day. I'll come in when you need me to come in. And I was trying to use some of the technologies of the day, like WebEx before Teams, etc., to try and work in a slightly different way. So as I say, COVID's just accelerated the way we are, but that's not going to change. The way we are now is the way we're going to be. So we just need to absolutely embrace that. And then, of course, we've got this interconnectivity of what's going on around the branches. We've got branches, people still within branches, data within the branches, and the people sitting at home. So the data's absolutely everywhere. What does that mean for us? It means we've got that complex management. How on earth are we going to manage all these data workloads everywhere? You know, the world of managing firewalls, branch offices is absolutely gone. We've got the remote users. So this extends now to things like their broadband at home. You give them a corporate device. Who else is on that home network? Are the kids playing things? I've got 2 young boys. They're into their IT as well. You know, what are they doing? I've got no idea if they're actually torrenting or what they're up to as well. And it's difficult. You go in there and ask them. You never see them up to anything, but you know they're doing stuff when the door's closed. And that's the same for most people that are working. You've got BYOD. You've got workloads sitting on these devices or workloads sitting on the mobile phones as well. You can't control everything. You know, we talk about secure your broadband routers, etc. There's so much more goes on in there as well. And then, of course, you've got this increased. All this means we've got a much wider footprint across the internet or surface to protect. It's no longer just protecting that perimeter. It's protecting everything from every device. So that's very much the challenge. I inherited this 4 years ago when I went into the NHS. This structure looks very much like what I had. And I'm sure a lot of you sitting here as well will actually say, this is actually quite typical to me. I won't go into all the details, but I'll point out some of the bits for you as well. So if you're looking at that bit down, the big box with all the multicolours, that's your traditional data centre or your data room. And when I went into the NHS, that's where they stored all their data. The medical records were in there. They were mainly digitised, thankfully. We had a lot of our big applications in there, our Oracle databases. We had our 3-tier systems that were all sitting within there. We actually then started to burst out into IaaS, which was the public cloud that's sitting above there as well. And we actually put some express routes or direct connections up into there. And then we extended that out with a big MPLS network that sat across the entire whole of Scotland called SWAN, Scottish Wide Area Network, that I managed. That wasn't just NHS, that was all public sector as well. So that was courts, police, etc., all tapped into that. And all the local authorities, they all used that same complex, expensive MPLS network. Now, because of that, we were doing a lot of routing of information. It was all coming into the MPLS, and then it was breaking out into the public cloud that we were creating. So it was really expensive and really inefficient. And then you've got things like remote users coming in. Again, 4 years ago, everybody got the VPN client, and we were doing that. When COVID hit, we're having to actually increase the licenses, the capability of these devices, the configuration of what we're doing. So highly complex, highly difficult to manage is where we found ourselves. These are some of the challenges. Just talked about that increased threat surface that you've got, the complex management, and the pure user experience. If users are having to come back all the time across the MPLS networks into the data center and then break out from there, they're relying on the hardware, the performance, and actually relying on all that data being routed across, which is not where we want to be. This is where technology like Sassy comes in. Now, so Sassy stands for Secure Access Service Edge. Gartner coined that. When I started explaining that to my board in the NHS didn't get it. So I changed the Sassy conversation from Secure Access Service to securing all services everywhere. And they got that. It was nice and simple. It wasn't technical talk, it was straightforward talk. So Sassy comes in. Sassy is all about actually securing all your environments. And it's talking about doing it basically with a cloud network native way of wanting to do that. So zero trust is a big part of that. Don't trust any devices at all. So don't trust users, don't trust devices, don't trust network workloads. You want everything to be multi-factor authenticated, and identity sits at the heart of everything that you should be doing. And secure connectivity to make sure that you've got that right level of threat prevention. 3 quick things I'm going to be talking about. So the first thing is secure remote access. Now, secure remote access means that we're looking to actually secure these remote users as to how we're doing it. Now, the quick diagram I've got up there is showing these remote users connecting to a Sassy POP or a Sassy point of presence. That's fully cloud-driven, is what that is. And that's going to be routing all these connections in onto the network and then out to where they need to be. Everything's got IP tunneling set up. It's able to actually have a look at any encryption levels, etc. So it absolutely knows what all the data is and where it's going. Drilling into this a bit further, this is what I would call zero trust network access as a service. So it's all lightweight. You can do this using clientless access, so you don't need to be installing things on devices. They can just use web browsers. The web browsers can be configured to actually route you through to any application. It could be an application in your own data center. It could be an application sitting within the cloud. So it could be your Office 365 or your Salesforce application is what you want to do. From a security point of view, that gives you that full visibility. So I know where everybody's going, who they are, what they're doing. You get audit trails, and you're able to actually understand what you're doing. It manages your keys, it manages your access and what you're doing. The second thing I was going to talk about was now the secure internet access rather than the remote access. So this is securing all your connections all the way right through using these web gateways that we're deploying into the cloud to allow that traffic to be managed properly. So again, it doesn't matter where they're coming from. Is it a branch office? Is it the internet? It's making sure that data and these bad connections can't get back into your data centers, but making sure that that traffic is absolutely managed and efficient. This is a secure web gateway that I've demoed up here. Doing 3 things, doing threat prevention. Obviously, we don't want to make sure any threats are coming back into the data center. We need to make sure all these devices are protected. So that's your intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, it's your URL filtering, it's your behavioral and analytics that you get on the back of that. It's also your access controls to make sure that you only allow devices that you know are secure and meet your policies of the devices that are actually going to connect. So straight away, you know your remote users are connecting securely, and you know all your devices are connecting securely across the internet. So that gives you access to all these services. Third thing I was going to talk about is moving this on to the branch. So I've talked about working remotely. I've talked about doing this across the internet. You connect the branches into that. The old expensive MPLS network I had in Scotland called Swan, we've actually just gone out to renew that, and we're actually looking at changing that to a software defined network. SD-WAN is what we're looking to do. It's much cheaper, it doesn't have to be managed in the same way, but what we're looking to do is to make sure we've got the same level of security on that SD-WAN network as you would do from an MPLS provider that's actually providing this ring of network that's fully managed. Now you can do that again by adopting Sassy and plugging that Sassy branches into connected connectivity, like what we're showing there. We've got branch offices, we've got main offices, you've actually got resilient connections again going into your Sassy POPs, and through there you're able to, through multiple internet connectivity zones or availability zones, manage all these connections through the much cheaper internet access you can get. You get much more bandwidth for your buck, is what I would say, and you can get much more better security. You can deploy the same policies, the same layers of protection onto your physical devices as you do then to your end offices and branch offices. A couple of slides on statistics before we go to finish up. So a couple of statistics which I think are exactly what I'm talking about. The first one on the left is the state of this remote access world as to where we are. So you can see 70%, this is from a Checkpoint survey that was done before I joined them, so this was when I was in the NHS. So what Checkpoint are saying is 70% of customers allow data, corporate data, to be on a laptop or a mobile device or a non-corporate device is actually what we're saying. But we don't protect them all. I don't know how many people out here have got full protection, endpoint protection on their mobile phones. Corporate email on their phones, maybe they're using their phone for multi-factor authentication. They've perhaps got access to a OneDrive or Office 365, but some of that protection only stops at the endpoint itself, not at the mobile endpoint. And of course, MDM isn't full, doesn't offer you things like full encryption, it doesn't give you things like the full phishing, clicking on links and making attachments safe. You need to do that. And then you look at the state of internet access security on the right-hand side. Now, I've just listed 5 things that you get through that internet access security. You would get this from one of the secure web gateways type products. So again, when you look down there, 55% have got URL filtering, so that's typically what you would get. You know, if you've got a proxy and it'll do some sort of filtering, or it'll look at that URL reputation. There's only 41% have actually got technology in place whereby if you're downloading, say, an attachment, the attachment will come down, it'll clean that attachment and give you a clean version, so there's no chance of you clicking on something that's got any potential malware within an Excel spreadsheet, for etc. 31% have got some sort of zero phishing, which is absolutely great to see. Only 17% have got that credential protection across their mobile and their endpoint, where if you're using your credentials from your corporate devices, such as your corporate passwords, it'll come and stop it and it won't allow you to do it, and that's essential. But if you actually ring these all the way around to say, so how many are doing all 9%? How many are doing all of them? It's only about 9%. So we're definitely in a place where we need to up the game, and you can certainly do that through Sassy. A quick summary, and then that'll be me. So one, you can do digital acceleration. We're all moving into the cloud. The workloads are different. We're working remotely. You need to start tying all this together, and that's the key message from this. And you need to pivot to this cloud-based security and away from perimeter-based security. It's got to be looking at where are your workloads, how are you going to protect these workloads. Vendor consolidation is absolutely critical just on this, because if you set out on the wrong route to Sassy, you could find you're going to be complicated trying to actually join these services and systems together. You can be trying to write APIs or using the vendor's APIs to get this speaking to that speaking to that, and you get into a landscape that's going to be very, very difficult and expensive to run. So what I would say on the back of that is what you want to be doing is speak to a vendor that's actually doing end-to-end Sassy. You don't have to do it all. Create yourself a program that starts off perhaps looking at some of the endpoint pieces or the remote access pieces or the secure internet pieces, and at least from there you're able to build that portfolio out and make sure you're doing it in a future-ready and a future-proofed way. That's my details there. I'd be delighted for anybody just to link in with me and connect if they want to speak technology, security, or if you want to pick my brains on what I did as a CEO up in Scotland for the NHS. I'm more than happy to share some of these messages, some of the COVID things that we did. And if you do want to actually talk about any of the products, I'm not the person to do that. I talk strategy, but we've got a great team downstairs that would love to speak to you about some of our Sassy products. So thanks very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.